Good morning, everyone. We'll just leave it a little while to check the participants who are coming in at a rate of knots right now. But hang on one second and we'll get started. Still ticking up, which is great. Hi, Lucy. Good to see you. Um, we'll hear you. We'll see your note. Great. Okay, let's kick off then. We're delighted to welcome you all to this webinar. The WIN webinar in association with Esomar. We're delighted to be doing this together. I'd like to introduce you to our panel today, which includes myself, Peter Paul Verhegen, the CEO of Motive Action in the Netherlands, Xavier Palacio, the Head of Intelligence Advocacy and Standards at Esomar, and Xavier Depoy, Managing Director of DXL Research and Consulting in Vietnam. We'll all be taking you through this and hope to give you some great insights during the day today. So, as you know, the topic of AI is very important right now. It has an importance to governments, to business, to you and I as individual people thinking about what our children's future is in the world. And I think this index is really valuable in that it provides policymakers, educators, and companies with the data they need to bridge the AI gap and promote responsible innovation. The context of massive pressure to make AI work is seen in the world around us everywhere. We all know business owners are pushing hard to bring efficiencies through AI, but at the same time, we are seeing more and more stories about the struggle to make AI work, the strain of AI implementation, businesses pulling back because the costs are so high, and people also may be feeling lost in terms of what it means for them from a job point of view. So there's a real pressure on economies that makes the findings you're about to see even more relevant. So a little bit about the 2026 WIN World AI Index. As you can see, nearly 40,000 respondents are covered in this AI index survey with 44 countries covered globally. And the AI index helps us answer four critical questions. How widely and how frequently is AI used? And just to flag that as AI moves so quickly, there's actually been a change in this survey as well to help us to better understand the use of AI, which is the use of the word intentionally. So, in other words, we've measured how widely and how frequently AI is used intentionally. Just a year ago, we wouldn't have even expected to have to do this, but of course, AI has appeared everywhere in all our lives unintentionally. And so it's important for us to understand when people are really going to use it themselves, particularly. We'll also look at which segments engage most and least with AI. How is AI perceived across countries, and how are these perceptions shifting over time? And also how people use AI in both a personal and a professional environment, another change this year. By combining the scale, comparability, and year-on-year perspective, you're going to see really great information that equips policymakers, educators, and businesses, as I say, with the data needed to close AI gaps and foster responsible innovation. So, if we move on, then the key insight, I suppose, at the very start of this is that the global AI adoption rate has reached 74%, which is a significant jump from last year at 62%. And imagine this is also with the use of intentional use included in the question. So AI usage has increased quite substantially. The overall AI index increased from 50.9% to 54.5% in 2026. And the index covers a range of things, not just usage, but also attitudes towards AI, how much people want to use or don't want to use, and concerns about AI are all built into the index, which you'll see in a minute. So we're no longer asking people if they will use AI because it's clear from the 74% that the majority already are. The question is more how society is adapting to this behavioral infrastructure. And to understand the nuances of how people are using it, I'm going to pass over to Peter Paul, first of all, to give us some insights here. So, Peter Paul, we've hit 74% global adoption, but the real story is frequency, isn't it?
Absolutely, Richard. Thank you so much for introducing us. Yes, the big thing is the frequency usage. As you see here in this slide, it is increasing to 74% this year. This means that three-quarter of all the people we have spoken to during our research says they have used AI in the last year. On a frequency level, the top two bucks is increased to 39% from 24 to 39%, and occasionally 36. As you see, and Xavier later on will go more in depth into this, there's a huge dispersion between various parts in the world. The Americas with on top, and MENA and Europe are slightly behind it. So yes, it is the adoption rate is has increased during the last year. It's a common tool around the world, and this means that AI is not a newcomer anymore, but just around us and accepted to a large extent. It is, as you might call it, a background utility. Um, if you dive a little bit more deep into the details, then there is another interesting difference to see between professional and personal usage of AI. Of course, we can use it everywhere. And as I said, the adoption rate you see here on the left is 74% overall. But look to the right where it is used. While, from a professional point of view, we might encourage our employees to use it. But adoption rate for professional use is 60%, while for personal usage, it is rising to 71%. At home, it is used more than in a professional environment at this very moment. This means that consumers around the world have adopted AI as a thing for them to use in their life whenever it is needed. And on a more professional level, there is more reluctancy to use it. Um, Again, the daily usage is a minority behavior in both contexts. Only 10% use AI professionally and 12% personally. But overall, you might say that the adoption rate has increased to a large extent, and especially in our personal life, it is a tool like any other tool at the moment. We have also asked, okay, if you then use it at home and if you use it for your work, how do you use it? And that will show the next slides. First, yeah, there it is. From a professional point of view, for research, innovation, and data analysis, that's still the top. Productivity and workflow automation to almost 30%. And next to that, decision making, marketing, communication, customer service, down to financial management and forecasting, to sly important figures with some differences in the different parts of the world. But still, for research, innovation, and data analysis, it's one of the tools that's used for professional life. But even more interesting for me it's to see how we use it at home. For entertainment purposes, that is by far the most. 39%, almost 4 out of 10 people around the world use AI, for entertainment purposes. If it is schoolwork, content creation, these are strong secondary drivers. It is much more broader than professional use. And as you can see here, it's not dominated by one single purpose, but to a variety. Entertainment, schoolworking, creativity, health, wellness support, daily organizational support, many important fixtures to see that this become part of our life. Myself, I made a plan to make the agenda for my holiday trip this year. It worked fantastically, and that this shows, like this graph, that has become part of our life. Overall. I will head over the floor to Xavier to give us more in depth in, if this is all around the world the same, or we can some differences. Xavier, tell us more about in what part of the world it is strongly adapted and in which part it is less.
Thank you, Filippo. From my side, I'm just going to bring back a bit about how is our index made, because like Richard mentioned it, actually the index is not only the frequency and the incidence of usage, but we actually are measuring 7 key indicators across 40 countries in this 2026 edition. So, some of the main findings that we see around the globe, and I will present is the impact of the index. It's actually through those different dimensions that I'm going to explain. More to explain to you, because this is what we call the comfort paradox. Is actually when we measure people concern in using AI, we're actually testing three different main concerns, which are fear of losing the job. That's something from literature review that is coming quite often. Fear of misinformation and the fear of data misusage. That indicator that I'm going to use and explain a bit more through the coming slide is made of those indicators. Now, what we see is actually when you look at the two on the right side of the see that our spider web shows in red the 2026 data and in
Sorry,
blue the 20.
Xavier, we cannot hear really clear. Can you speak a little bit louder?
And 25 data in blue. Okay.
Okay.
So where I want to show you clearly is actually there the usage has increased quite a lot, like we've seen earlier, is both in terms of incidents but also in terms of frequent usage. So we do have much more people who are actually using AI more frequently, like Peter Paul mentioned. Every other indicator is slightly higher, especially in terms of acceptance, where this year we also added a small tweak compared to last year. We asked actually how people feel encouraged to use AI to also measure the importance of the environment, could be at home or at work. And this is will be continuing in the next edition as well. Now, just to focusing on trust, because again, last year that was a big thing. We were asking, are people trusting the result when they're going online, when they're chatting with ChatGPT or some other AI tools? Trust is increasing. So it means we have people who are actually using it more often and finding the result more worthy. But when we come to control and the three concerns that I mentioned, we see that this indicator is going down. So that's creating for us like a comfort question about why people are using more, why people are trusting the result more, but at the end they feel more comfortable or inversely more concerned about the results. Measured are actually high. So those are the share of people with high concern, people actually grading 6 and more on the scale to 10. So the key thing is not only the result as such, like 73%, 65, but that's the really high increase compared to last year. We have like almost 16% increase on the spread of false information, personal data breach, and fear of losing their job. So we see that there's a trend that people are using more often, but at the same time, they feel more concerned about those deep fakes, about losing their information. So overall, we do have 6 out of 10 people in our sample that is feeling a high level of concern on the impact of AI technology on society. When it comes to region-wise, like Peter Paul mentioned, Europe is actually really leading the way among the really cautious adopters of AI technology, with a very strong, like almost 8 out of 10 people fearing high concern about the spread of false information. So we see that the increased usage is making people very well concerned. Where we see the lower level is MENA, there's a higher level of concern overall, and to some extent APAC, and we'll see that has some kind of impact on the segmentation of countries. Now, when we look a bit more about how is the AI and what are the other gaps that we measure, we actually measure last year a gender gap, which this year, in terms of incidence, we have a very small gap between the usage of AI by men and women. Of course, there are differences around the globe, but overall, we have 73% of women and 75% of men who have already used AI technology. So there's not a big gap between two genders, although this gap is much higher in the Americas and also in Europe, where we see the index between men and female is wider. The second gap that we measure, and that's also important for policymakers, is about the generational gap. And I see that both United Kingdom and Vietnam are among the two countries with the largest generation gap. And across all countries, we have a diversity, including Venezuela, France, and Australia, who show a huge gap between people who are higher than 55 years old and respondents who are under 55 years old as we measure. So, of course, this is linked to access to technology by country, but every country do have a reason to close the gap. What I want to also mention this year is actually the incidence rate of the older generation. Although we do have a gap, we see that the incidence rate has been reduced quite a lot from last year. So last year, we had only 14% of users which were over 55 years old. So among people 55 years old, only 44% were using. So now it's 25%. So it's developing also, although the gap's still here, we still have a big increase. And within the under 35 years old, we have now more than 52% of the population who's been using AI, and 24% of them are using it daily. So that's a really, really big push from the younger generation who are actually embracing the use of AI both personally and at work. Now, we don't want to go in too much detail because you actually have access to the interactive dashboard that we prepare and that is available on the WIN website. You can see the address at the bottom of that. So in that dashboard, you can see the overall country, you can see all the indicators, but you can also have a focus on country by country. So feel free to go explore the data and look at the dashboard for more further information. Now, what we did this year as a new analysis, we wanted to classify the country and also the people according to their usage. So we run K-mean analysis and segmentation, where we actually got four groups of countries based on their perception, usage of artificial intelligence. The first one are the AI leaders, who are obviously the one who have the highest access to AI and also trust and the lowest level of concern. Only 8 countries. The rising performer, including both countries from APAC and few countries from Europe, including Greece and Slovakia. But the biggest group is actually the group including most European countries that we call the cautious adopters, where actually the Netherlands, France by country, and also Ireland are part of that, which actually are characterized by a mix of rate champion kind of user, people who are really actively, but more cautious adopters, people who are fear more, who have less comfort or more concern about the usage of technology. And of course, we have some country at early stage because of low penetration and low usage as well. So when we look at the different variables on those 4 countries, we really see that the comfort is interesting. Is people in the very early stage don't feel any concern. They are the ones who have not yet experienced so much AI technology, and they feel that there's no big impact on them. So that's where it's very characteristic. The cautious adopter, which are the European countries, are actually 3, like on the top 3 in almost all dimensions, which show that they're a bit lagging behind. And also they do have a mixed level of comfort. In terms of rising performer like Vietnam, which is actually show a very strong daily usage compared to the population, and an increase about like a usage about 50% of the population using AI, we see that comfort has become an issue. And that's what we call really much the comfort paradox. Is like the more we use it, the more concern it causes in terms of considering where we are. So just giving an idea and show you what we have at the country level, and I'll take the example of Vietnam very briefly, but we do have an increase in most dimension, except a shortfall in comfort this year. It's also very important to see that in country like Vietnam, there is only very recently an AI law that has been passed. So from the time we actually run the survey end and beginning of this year, we didn't have the law in place. So there was a lot of question about how AI is going to be managed and regulated. So this maybe have been impacted on the data to cause more concern on the usage of the fake information or the spread of losing your data in those models, especially that is not like there's no data center in Vietnam. So overall, this is where we are, the general things. I'm just wondering also, Javier, this concern and the lack of, regulation that cause, maybe more people to be concerned about their data and usage. How is it in Europe, and what is the role of Esomar, and how Esomar is actually supporting members to promote the use of AI in our industry?
So thanks, Xavier. And I should also thank Win as well for carrying out this study. I think it's really very interesting. I love the findings. And to some extent, it also supports some of the studies and that we have been carrying out here at Esomar. So I think some ideas are actually combined. So indeed, like we are seeing quite a few things. Up until now, it feels like AI still remained in the realm of a promise. It was that thing that was going to solve so many aspects of our work, of daily life, etc. But because it was a promise, because it hadn't been tested, still people were living on that promise and not really being fully aware of its capabilities, but also of its limitations. And I think now we are past that threshold, and it is, I think, clear to see here how the usage of AI has become much more clear. But people are also now becoming much more acutely aware of the limitations and the risks that may exist. So one of the things that we found at Esomar is as well how AI usage pairs with, for example, internal governance within companies. And what we have seen is that as last year, there was, well, comparatively little work being done for internal governance within companies. Right now, it's quite widespread. Above 80% of companies report having their internal policies and guidelines to support AI development. So indeed, what we are seeing is that many companies are taking also the steps to, as Richard was saying, to responsibly develop AI tools and some of these new technologies. Indeed, the one thing that I think is very particular of the insights industry is that unless we ensure that the public and the citizens trust us, there's basically no industry, because we need the data, we need the interaction with the public. So for us, ensuring that level of trust is paramount. So of course, I think we are in prime position precisely to lead by example. And such examples, and we can talk a little bit later about this, can be not only these internal governance elements like policies and guidelines, but also other industry level efforts like can be the ICC Esomar Code of Conduct. Again, I can expound a little bit later on this and how the code provides a more practical level of support for development. But one thing that I was left thinking as well, and you were talking about this as well, was on the difference between how AI is used personally versus at work. And of course, personal use of AI doesn't carry the same level of risk. Your work, the reputation of the company is not at stake. You can just use it and it's fine. But that precisely, in my mind, points to why internal governance is so important. Because through internal governance, we build the foundation upon which AI can be developed at companies. So seeing how these building blocks are being deployed now, I hope helps to also start to help workers to deploy AI with a bit more confidence. Another thing is I have seen is on the risk, for example, from some people to the risk of losing jobs that many people fear. I'm not sure to what extent we are at that level. What really resonates with me is this idea that AI is like a co-pilot, not to name one of the applications, but it is an actual thing to help workers. The reason is that, and this is also perhaps, talking from a bit of personal experience, I have not found that AI is a good creator of content unless you know the topic perfectly well. So having that level of oversight is just necessary. I don't think the AI is at that stage where you can just let it run unless you have the actual knowledge on the other side, on the human side. And that's why I think for now, its biggest application is in relieving humans of tedious tasks and allowing humans to, well, empower them and use their brains instead. So I don't see those risks so much. Again, maybe just to wrap up here, what I would like to say is that we are also seeing how several regions, several countries are deploying laws. I think it is, and I can talk about this a bit later, but there is a great opportunity for organizations like Esomar to have conversations with those governments, with those legislators, to precisely explain how this sector works and how they can create the legislation that helps citizens or that protects citizens while or without hindering this industry.
Great. Thanks, Xavier. That's fantastic. We're going to open up a few questions to the panelists now, and then we are also interested in questions from the audience. So if anyone has any, please put them in the chat, and we can make sure that we field them among the wider group. So Xavier, first, what do you think? You were talking there about the things like the EU AI Act and the individual countries' implementation of law. Do you think that that will slow down adoption, or do you think it will just make people feel better about adoption?
Yeah. Well, I think there is a huge debate there. Particularly because, for example, with the deployment of the AI Act last year or a couple of years ago, that has been under development. There were many critical voices that felt anxious as to how that would regulate AI within Europe compared to other regions in the world in which AI seems to be a bit more has a bit more free reign. I think what we should support is indeed a level of legislation that protects citizens, because at the end of the day, it's all of us, while at the same time favoring responsible AI development. I think it is worthwhile having safeguards that allow development, that can guide development. Otherwise, what we do or what we have is an explosion, probably a bubble, and that bubble tends to burst. So I think it's definitely great to have regulations. What I would like to add is what I finished my previous block with, which is the conversation between local associations, regional associations, or global ones like Esomar with those legislators in order to explain how the sector works, what we are looking for, and how they can create the laws that, while they still protect citizens, allow the industry to thrive. And that should be the bulk of it. What we have seen now in the conversations we have with the European Union, etc., is of course they may have some misunderstanding of the industry. They don't understand that when we do research, we apply the scientific method and what that really means to the findings, to the credibility of the findings, etc. They may not understand the difference between research or research dedicated for marketing purposes, in which we are very careful to separate. We're not trying to influence the citizen, we're not, or the consumer. We're trying to understand them. And these are, little nuggets, and some others, of course, that are hugely helpful for legislators who, at the end of the day, also want to help the industry, but we need to guide them on how to do it, properly.
Very good. Peter, Paul, and Xavier, from your experience of looking at the data, then it was interesting what Xavier was saying about the pressure on jobs and the concern about jobs, and that he was saying, well, it's more of a co-pilot, and it's working with people. But I'm just interested because it seems to me that in some markets there is a pressure on jobs. Certainly in the UK, the graduates are finding that there are far less jobs than there were. And I think maybe this is a pressure from, business thinking that there is efficiencies and the efficiencies maybe not quite happening yet. But what do you see as the consumer response? Do you think that's what's underlying that or something else?
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's very underlying. And another thing, what strikes me, what Xavier is saying, is about the importance, for the business compared to, in private life. But if you see the usage of AI in private life, yes, it's used for entertainment to a large extent, but also for more important topic, if you may call it that way, for schoolwork and learning, for example, but also for financial management. So you see that, yes, it's in the private area of a consumer's life. It's more, the fun part is already there, but also in their personal life, it's used for very serious issues. If you are learning on school and you are confronted with incorrect information by AI, it will directly influence what you're learning. If you have your financial management system based on an AI, and it is, with the wrong information or with information in a certain direction, and you don't know it, it has a negative effect. So yes, people feel around that it affects their life. They use it, and at the same time they have to be very cautious about what's going on. So it's a kind of, they fear it and they love it. And that's what you see. And I think that's also means that at this moment we are talking so much about it, that the Pope has said something about it, and AI companies are saying something about it, because it has the two faces in one. And you see that in Europe, but in fact you see it all over the world.
Thanks, Peter Paul. I mean, just to add on to that, Xavier, there's a question coming in which I think is kind of related. So maybe I'll post this question to you, and this is around the index in Canada, the UK, US, Australia, where it's showing relatively low use for younger people and relatively high use for those in older age groups. And do you think that that is around this whole Peter Paul saying of older people using it more for fun and younger people more concerned about it? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, we can see that actually we have a look at each detail of each market, and actually that's what makes this study very important and unique, is because we actually making the data and the report available to all researchers and people around the world to deep dive into the AI usage across age groups, across gender. So what we see from the purpose of using AI for personal use is actually entertainment, schoolwork remains #1 in the America. So we could look in detail in the data and do more segmentation in terms of the older age group. But it's true that the entertainment usage in the America is #1. We didn't ask specifically, making image on Facebook, so it's a bit difficult, but that's something we can maybe detail in the next edition.
Very good. Xavier, do you have any thoughts on that one? Nope.
Not particularly.
Okay.
I was actually eyeing the next one.
We have another question. I'll put this one to you then, Xavier. Yes. So, from Titos, AI allows our clients' organizations to bring in-house some added value services, which up to now were contributing significantly to our margins, such as reporting, recommendations, analysis, and consulting. Do you think this is a credible risk to our business and the research industry as a whole?
Yeah. So that I was looking quite into that because that has been something I've been covering quite a bit in over the last few years in some of my presentations as well. I will try to summarize. My take is that at the moment, at least, AI is a tool that allows to the extraction of insights a bit more at scale. So that it brings in the democratization of insights, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it brings in democratization at a very sophisticated level. In order to provide meaningful reporting, recommendations, consulting, especially in such a world as today's, which is changing so fast, which is so uncertain, what we need is precisely the kind of knowledge that only lives as of today within humans, that can bring that nuance, that can guide those clients, say by the hand, so to speak. So to me, AI, I believe, may focus a bit more on that area of, say, the mass production, but there is a huge opportunity still to focus and to and even to look into the increased revenue that may come from specializing on reporting recommendations and consulting. That on top brings another risk, which is embedded into our revised code of conduct of 2025, which is that because AI implies the democratization of insights, we need to make sure that that we are not dealing with black boxes, that there is enough level of transparency, that there's always a human in the loop to ensure that there is the right level of accountability, that you can evaluate the outputs as well to make sure that it's what you need, and also that you understand the model to understand the biases that may be embedded. So it's not, this is the kind of the big two ways that I see to answer to Tito's question.
Very good. Peter, Paul, Xavier, do you have any views on the impact on our business?
Actually, I think what Javier mentioned is very correct. I talked to today a CEO of a software development company, and I think the impact of AI on their business is also very, very important. Just for me, he replaced almost 80% of his workforce in the last year for different type of position, looking more at supervisor, people with experience, and less of the lower level type of coder or developer. So I think what we're seeing in that industry and in our industry is also like a transformation. And of course, like Javier mentioned, is like you need to really nuance, guide the AI, and to get really interesting recommendation, you need to have experience. So the question is more about the next generation of researcher, the one who do not have experience yet. How they're going to be using AI and how we can actually onboard them, because we always been an industry lacking talents, trying to attract new talents. So how can AI can actually help us, attract talents by developing tools that they can use and bring them up into the experience later. So those are the key questions we also have on our side, I think, in the research industry.
Yeah, I do agree with Xavier. I think that is one of the things we have to keep in mind, how we educate young people to use it properly. I think what Xavier is saying about, about regulations and the importance of regulations, I do totally agree with it. And you see it also in the figures, the fact that, from a professional perspective, people say that the AI acceptance and the adoption is to a lesser amount already there than it is in private life, it tells me that we are more curious and more serious about how we use AI in our professional life. And I do think that regulation, if we can see AI as an innovation, then very soon after the introduction of this innovation, we are already talking about regulations. And I don't know an innovation from my professional life that so soon after the innovation is becoming, widespread, we are talking already about regulation. Normally it is, let everybody do their thing and then nice things will emerge. And now we are talking already after 5 years or probably 4 years, we're talking about, okay, take care, how do we use it, how we use it properly. So I think that it tells me that the industry is very professional, looking from a very professional point of view to this innovation. And for me, it gives also trust that in the end we will sort out that we will use AI in a very responsible way. Probably at this very moment we are excited about it, and we use it in all different kind of ways. Soon I think it will land, and we find professional ways to act on it.
Very good. I think we have time for what there was one more question here from Karen in Sweden, which is an interesting one. And she was saying it was a great presentation, but the things are developing so fast. One of her question is, what should be in the next measures that we're not asking right now of the AI index? Is there questions around the consequences of using AI that we need to dive deeper into? So, what's your thoughts on that, Xavier and Peter?
Well, I think our AI index is improving every year because as a new topic, like we improved this year by looking to more AI usage and frequency, we see there are some voices in some countries, especially among the younger one, who also are concerned about the impact of AI and maybe bring some barrier to usage or bringing some requirement about getting some sustainable AI being used. So that may also something we can monitor, which generation is actually concerned with the environmental impact of AI and how this external factor of beliefs may affect their adoption or their usage of them. So that could be an interesting way to look from my side.
Sorry, Peter Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree on that. If we can sort out by robust data how AI is used in organizations, but also in personal life in a responsible way, that should be a big contribution to the study. But you said in the beginning, Richard, that this is important stuff for policymakers and decision makers. I think even the data we have today should be sent to policymakers, and they should take it into account in their policy making, because it tells that people, they want to use AI, but they are struggling to use it in a responsible way, because that comfort thing, what Xavier was explaining to us, what is under pressure, that is so important. We should be able to come up with data that help the policymakers to come up with regulation that really gives the public and the companies comfort. I think that's one of the most important thing of this study.
Very good. Constanza, I see you have your hand up, and you're very welcome as a key member of the AI Index team. You had a question or a comment?
No, I want to comment on Karin's question. I agree totally with Peter, Paul, that the data that we have is very actionable data. There's a lot of other topics to include. One of them is the use of AI for emotions, the emotional use of AI. That we could dig into that more in the coming waves. Also, the environment impact, as Xavier was saying, and also increasingly that the Pope mentioned in the last document that he released. It would be interesting to have more data on the image of companies of AI and technology. The leaders of these companies are having more and more an important role, and it's interesting to have the opinion of the public opinion on them.
Very good. Thank you very much. Very conscious of time. We said we'd finish at 1:45, and it's just reached 1:45 now. So thank you all very much for all your input, panelists, and all the hard work that went into this report. The key thing I think here is that we've moved away from curiosity to daily usage, and we need to understand what the impact of that is going forward. Please do visit the WIN website where you'll find the report is available there on a BI dashboard, and your country's own data is all there as well. So there's lots to dig into. And do contact us to subscribe to the full report with the segmentation analysis if you're interested in that and help support the initiative for next year. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.